Hello and welcome back to the Breath Mama channel. I'm Ella.O, aka the Breath Mama. A while back I did a video about the work. What is the work? If you haven't seen it, the link is in the description. So a recap of what the work is. The work is about getting to a point where we acknowledge that we are unhappy about certain experiences that we have over and over and over and over again in our lives. So that might be certain behaviours that we keep perpetuating. It might be certain feelings towards specific people, events, or challenges in our lives. We may be triggered by certain things. Or it may just be a feeling of generally maybe disconnection, not feeling satisfied, not feeling as happy as we'd like to feel in our lives. So recognizing those things and then deciding, because we are aware that we are not wanting these things to keep happening, that we are going to show up for ourselves and do whatever we need to do in order to process so that we can move forward. So breath work for me is always a number one non-negotiable when we're looking at processing, and I'll do a video about why that is. And it may be other things. There may be therapy, wellness, well-being activities that we do to help us remain calm and centered, meditation, yoga, qigong, reiki, whatever it is your thing. So by showing up, we do those things that allows us to integrate those thoughts, emotions, feelings, actions, behaviours, and maybe situations, maybe if that means changing those situations, moving away from a job, from a person, whatever it is, so that we can move forward in our lives. So that in a nutshell is what the work is. So we know what it is, but why do we necessarily care? I'm fine. Everyone has their shit to deal with. I've been getting along just fine. And why do I need to do anything about that situation, person, thought, event, feeling, behaviour that keeps repeating itself over and over and over again? My question is, wouldn't you like to be, it's a cliche, but thriving instead of surviving? Wouldn't you like to have a sense of freedom that means that you don't get consumed by this thought, action, feeling, behaviour, situation, person, relationship, and feel that sense of being able to be in the flow and not have to preempt things that are going to happen or be overthinking and worrying about triggers that may happen as a result of this, whatever this thing is? And it also comes down to some other basic things. So we all have responsibilities as human beings, not just to ourselves and those who are immediately in our circle, whether that's family, friends, colleagues, the people that we directly touch. We also have a responsibility on a wider scale. As human beings, we all have a responsibility to the collective, to the people that live in every corner of the world, people that we most likely will never, ever meet. Because our thoughts, our behaviours, our energy, and our actions all feed into the collective unconscious. So you may have heard this term, and it's the coming together of every single human being on this earth, their energetic coming together, or our energetic coming together, that plays outwardly in the human experience that we all are a part of. There was something that was said, I think it was by George Carhill, and I'm terribly misquoting. Well, I'm not quoting it, but I'm just giving the gist, and I'll find the actual words and put it in the description. Excuse me. But it went along the lines of people bitch and moan and complain about the leaders that are there making decisions, the politicians, and some of the ideas and the way that life is created by these people. But they forget that those people, whoever they are just a reflection of where we are as a society and where we are as humanity. And I just love the way that that was expressed, because it's so true. Even if you didn't directly vote for that person, for that leader, for that representative, the thoughts that you're having, the energy that you're putting out into the world, the way that you feel, good, not so good, feeds into the possibility for these people to even be there in the first place. So this is an example, an outward manifestation of how our thoughts feed into the collective. And because how is it possible? How is any of that behavior acceptable? Because some of us are thinking it, or that's incorrect. We are all thinking it on some kind of level. And some of us may be more entrenched and focused in on a particular way of thinking and feeling and being. But if we don't clean up our act, we are also creating the outward situation that we are all experiencing, whether we like it or not. So that's the first reason why we have a responsibility to do the work, because our frequencies, our thoughts, our behaviors, our emotions feed into this melting pot. And the fact that it's unconscious means we're not aware that it's influencing everybody's experience. So if we bring these things into our awareness and we start to clean them up a bit, it starts to change what is going on in this collective. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, it's really important for us to do the work because of the ripple effect that that has on our communities. So this follows on from the idea that no person is an island. No person exists completely independently of other people. So you may not socialize that much, or you may not have direct day-to-day contact with a lot of people, but you are influencing people, again, that you probably don't even know, or you might have never met. There have been more and more scientific studies which prove the idea of the ripple effect. So, excuse me, if I am feeling really good, I have positive, I use the word positive, and actually I'm going to supplant it with the word desired feelings, thoughts, energy. I'm like upbeat, I'm excited about life, I'm joyous, I'm focused, I'm feeling productive, I'm getting stuff done. If I come with that energy, those emotions, and meet you, and I'm talking to you with that enthusiasm, with that excitement, with that joy for life, you're going to feel that, and it's going to start to resonate and vibrate with you on some kind of level. So even if you don't feel great at that moment in time before we meet, when we connect, that feel-goodness, that feel-good vibe that I'm carrying will have an effect on you. Oh, look, it's the bleeding phone. As she's back, what are the chances of the phone and the door keep going non-stop today? So, recapping or reminding myself where I was. So, even if it doesn't lift your spirit up instantly and you go like, woo, I'm feeling really good or at that same level, if perhaps you're preoccupied with something, you were maybe feeling a bit stuck, that connection, that energy will make you feel a little bit better. And maybe instead of focusing on the things that were dragging you down, you feel a bit more connected. You feel a bit more inspired. And then we part ways, you go and you meet a friend or your children, work colleague, partner, whatever. And then you reflect some of that excitement, some of that joy, some of that connection to them. And then they go off and meet, you see how it goes. And the studies have shown, I will link them below as well, that we can have our positive, upbeat, wanted experience can have a knock-on effect on up to 6 people. That's 6 degrees of separation. So by you feeling good, you will positively impact up to 6 people that could be nowhere near you. So if we work on our stuff, we do the work, we clean up our vibration, we rectify the things that we are less than happy about, we rectify the things that maybe cause us to feel uncomfortable about life, not good about ourselves, not good about our interaction and relationship with others, this has a huge, huge difference on the whole of the world, because this starts to play out on a bigger scale than just us internally or you and me. It's you and me and him and her and them, and it goes on like this. And this is why it's another reminder that as human beings, we are not isolated. We are not just about us as individuals. And when we are able to take care of ourselves, when we are able to take responsibility for our feelings, when we are able to notice and consciously respond as opposed to reacting to situations, to people, to triggers that may happen for us, then we could never, ever, ever intentionally hurt another person. We could never, ever, ever do something that intentionally brings harm. When we're integrated, when we're whole, when we're connected both inwardly and outwardly, we realize that I am you and you are me. So if I think that by saying things that are unkind to you, I'm going to get at you, then I'm fooling myself, because I'm just hurting the outward expression of me. And that's the thing about being fully connected and integrated, which happens from doing the work. So that's 3 things on a general level. When we take it into being a mama, we're taking it on a deeper level about why it's so fundamental for us as mums to do the work. Number 1 is generational and intergenerational trauma. So we all can think about the idea of not wanting to turn into our mother. Like if you catch yourself and you go, oh my God, I sound just like my mother. There are experiences that are passed through families. Experiences, pains, hurts, traumas, unconscious filters through which we expect to experience life. And these may be things that we just kind of accept about, oh, that's just the way my family is. But if maybe we step back, or somebody else who's not part of our family observes it, they may have a different slant on it. And maybe, do you know what? It's it's really not okay that everyone shouts at each other and thinks that that's normal. It's really not okay that people really make fun of you and belittle you or make you feel like you're not worthy or deserving. That's not okay. There are so many things that we have absorbed because part of family life means we're exposed to things over and over and over again, and we just kind of accept it. It doesn't mean that it's okay, and it doesn't mean that it's right. And equally, we may have had experiences, that sounded funny, we may have had experiences that we did not want to repeat for our kids. So it may be that we've noted, you know what, I was brought up in a home that was really emotionally abusive, and the way that my mum spoke to me, I never wanted to repeat to my children. So I'm taking responsibility for that. But if we don't actually do the work that we need to do around that, we can't fully transform that experience to be able to take the good stuff from it, to be able to take the lessons and the healing available so that it doesn't repeat itself. We have to do the work in order for that to completely and meaningfully happen. And I'm not saying that it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that it's always straightforward. Sometimes it's a continual work in progress, and we keep repeating it, and we have to keep revisiting it, and we have to keep going to those difficult, challenging places. But it's always worth it. Because if we take responsibility to cut those generational traumas, to cut those generational ties, then we free our children from repeating those patterns over and over again. We give them an opportunity to be who they're supposed to be connected to their true essence, their divine perfection, free from the conditioning of the past, free from the restrictions and like limitations that have come from years and years and years and years down the line that don't necessarily even translate to the world that we live in now. So for example, if you've come from a family who are always concerned about there's never enough, lack and limitation, there's never enough money, there's never enough time, there's never enough of me to emotionally give to you, there's never enough connection, joy, laughter, ease, whatever it is, passing that on to our kids. When we see them as beautiful, fresh babies out of the wrappers, and they're just pure love, they're just pure joy. They are waiting to share that joy and love with us. But if we are blinkered and filtered with all that lack and limitation idea, we're going to start imprinting that onto our kids. It's not safe to do that. No, we haven't got enough money. No, we can't do this. There'll never be enough. It goes on and on and on. Now, I'm not saying, because practically sometimes things are not as abundantly available. For example, we might have to be conscious about how we spend our money. But that doesn't mean that there's never going to be enough, because if we think about it, the things that we always need will get supported if we allow that. But that's a whole different other video. So as a mum, generational trauma is fundamental for us to do the work on. Identifying how that shows up for us, identifying what that means in how we parent and communicate, and the lessons that we show our children, the expectations about life we create. Super important. And this one's a bit of a joke. It's not a joke, it's serious, but it's a joke in the way that I express this. I've always, for the longest while, talked about clocking up therapy hours for my kids. And what I mean by that is there might be certain behaviours that I've had, certain dynamics that have been created, maybe sometimes, especially when I was younger and they were younger, because I, started off, or I went through a phase, shall I say, I didn't start off, I went through a phase of being a very angry mum. I had a lot of stuff going on, And I'm gonna do a video about that. And that anger, obviously, I say obviously, but that anger played itself out in the interactions that I had with my kids, projecting things onto them, holding them responsible for things that had absolutely nothing to do with them, joining the dots of situations that were not joinable because that's what my anger caused me to see. And in my more lucid moments, I could laugh about it, and maybe looking back at some of those behaviours as I'd started to do the work on things that were making me angry, as I'd started to take responsibility for how my emotions were affecting my interactions with my girls, I could look back and be like, yeah, I've clocked some serious therapy hours there for them. Or in the moment, if I was teasing or something, maybe teasing friends, teasing me, we are clocking up some therapy hours right there. And what I mean is, with the best will in the world, nobody is going to be the perfect mum. No one. It's impossible, because we all have our shit and conditioning that we bring with us, plus the intergenerational trauma, plus how we've had to survive in life, plus just the collective unconscious and everything that's been put into the melting pot. But the more conscious we are of our stuff, we can make choices. So, with my anger, for example, there were times when I was just in a rage and there was red mist. I wasn't thinking clearly. I wasn't aware of how it was just leaking out of me. The more I became dissatisfied with feeling like that, and the more I sought to change my feeling first, but with the knock-on effect it would have on my kids, the more I started to show up, and the more I got involved with doing the things that I needed to do the work, so I didn't keep showing up as this mad, crazy, angry woman. And the more that happened, I became more conscious and aware when I was feeling angry and when that anger started to act out. So before, where I would be in the rage and I couldn't see clearly, there were times where the anger was starting to come out and I could see myself getting angry. I could see it starting to happen. And as desperately as I wanted it to stop in that moment, I couldn't necessarily make it stop. But that was a huge step forward from being in a blind rage and not being able to have any sense of connection to that moment, because it was nothing to do with what was happening in the moment. That rage was old rage. It may have been triggered by something that made me feel angry, but the volume on that rage was not connected to the incident that was happening there. So then I started to become aware. And then the next stage was, I could feel the anger if I was triggered, and then I could stop and make a different choice. Did we get that far? No. I could feel the anger bubbling up, and then I was able to maybe stop myself as it was happening, and then go away, and then revisit the situation later. Or be angry, but not in such an unconscious way. In a, I wouldn't say calmer, that wasn't the next stage, but in a less vengeful, rageful outburst. And then it goes on to the next stage where I'm triggered by something and I can feel the anger coming up and I make a different choice. I'm going to remove myself from this situation. I'm not going to put the other people, i.e. my kids, through this. It's got nothing to do with them. And then the next levels, and then the next levels, where it comes to the point where sometimes now, I will say to my girls, I am angry. I feel angry about. They do think it's quite funny when I'm expressing myself in that way, but I can be angry, I can feel angry, I can express that I'm angry. I can talk about the thing that my anger is connected with, but I don't have to act on the anger. I don't have to lose my mind. I don't have to fly into a rage, because that ultimately leads us to feeling guilty afterwards, because we know when we look back that it wasn't warranted. However we expressed ourselves wasn't warranted, and it wasn't really proportional to the trigger. So this is what I mean when I say it's so important for us as mums to do the work, because we reduce the amount of therapy hours that our kids are going to need. Another thing as a mum that's really important about doing the work is leading by example. So it's all very well me saying, no, don't do that. It's not okay. It's okay for you to feel angry, but it's not okay for you to behave towards people like that. It's not okay to shout and throw things and scream all the time. You can't express yourself without doing that. But then when I get angry, I'm there losing my shit. The best way for us to encourage our kids to adopt certain behaviours, certain responses to life, and certain ways of doing things is by showing them, by being that example, by being connected to the process that you are espousing for them. So that's another super important reason for us to do the work, because how can we be that example if we are constantly being triggered left, right and centre, and we're not able to find it in us to relate to that way of being, because we're so discombobulated and emotionally within. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, because we all have our own, I'm going to use the J word, journey with going through this stuff. But once we start really understanding the importance of it as a mum, it's kind of important for us to do the work that needs to be done. Because once we know better, we absolutely need to do better. So these are some of the reasons that I feel so strongly about doing the work. I feel it's our responsibility as humans, as mothers, to be able to show up and do this. Literally the whole of humanity on a macro scale and a micro scale, when we reduce it down to our families, fundamentally rely on this. And again, I'll underline the point. When we are whole and connected to the truth of who we are, not the conditioning, not the pain from the past, not the distractions that life has caused us to take up, the survival mechanisms, it is impossible for us to harm others. And that's what it's all about. That is what it's all about. Being able to connect, be connected, feel connected, show up connected, and do the right thing. So let me know what you think about the importance of doing the work. Are you doing the work? Are you exploring your places that need attention, that need support, that need a deeper dive into the understanding of yourself to be able to be more of who you want to be? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to link some videos. We can have a conversation. Please like, subscribe, share. And thank you so much for your ideas, for your interaction and your time. I'm the Ella.O, and this is The Breath Mama Chanel.